after all, we said that there are actually 4 different types of verbs. Infinitive is one of them. Past simple is the second one. P2 is the third one. P1 is the fourth one. So, and then we said that there are actually 3 verb constructions: infinitive constructions, P2 constructions, and P1 construction. So, and these 3 verb constructions take up at least 80% of the sentence, which means in academic English, in larger sentences that you can see or hear, there are at least 1 verb construction in the sentence. That's why verb constructions are really important to create bigger, larger sentences. When I say advanced, when somebody says advanced English, it means that how large and how easy you can express your thoughts, and you can bring your ideas, you can carry them into words easily. So, and in a larger way, in a more detailed way. So that's why verb constructions will help you for that matter. So, and then we said there is a sentence structure, which subject, verb, object, adverbials. So there are 4 different types of adverbials. There is a place adverbial, time adverbial, how and reason adverbial can be used in one sentence. We have learned 5 different types of objects so far in place of object. And from now on, when we translate a sentence, or when we create a sentence, when we write an essay, we will try to use different types of objects when it comes to write an object. But actually, the larger part of your sentence is about adverbials. Like, there are many different types of how adverbial, time adverbial, and reason adverbial, and some types of place adverbials are also available in English. So next time when you come to this part of the sentence, when you ask the question where, when, how, why, you will also have multiple options to pick up from. And just like the objects, there are 5 different types of objects, except one, all of them have the same question, what. So after a transitive verb, we ask the question what, and we can use this 4 different types of objects, but we can ask the question who, and we can use a person object. Now, infinitive with prepositions, why we'll learn it? Because we use it in our language, and also English use this in their own language a lot. This helps you to create infinitive, to put infinitive in different shapes. So actually, these prepositions, not all the prepositions, but some particular prepositions can be used in front of infinitive. And what it does to infinitive, it changes the translation and the form of infinitive. Usually prepositions are used in front of nouns, like for example, on the table, above the bookshelf. So the book is on the table. Prepositions usually show the place of that particular object, they locate that particular object. But in front of infinitives, they don't have this function. What they do, they only change the translation and the form of infinitive and make it more useful for your sentence. Now let's talk about it. We have with. This is the first prepositions that can be used in front of infinitive. And in front of a noun, for example, with you, it means senin ile, right? It means ile. Also, in front of infinitives, it has the same translation. If there is any sort of prepositions before infinitive, then you cannot use it with to, but you always use it with ing. So, for example, go. If you want to say gitmekle, you will say with going. If you want to say içmekle, you'll say drinking, not with to drink or with to go. You're going to say with going and with drinking. And translation doesn't change when it comes to using with nouns or pronouns or infinitive. It both ile, but what it changes in infinitive, it's just the form and the translation. It's also infinitive, and each role of infinitive construction or infinitive, we also can apply it on this sort of infinitive construction. For example, if I say that you made the best decision with going there. How can you translate this sentence? Yes. So our infinitive construction here is this all. So what changed? There is only one difference between that original ordinary infinitive construction is that we added a preposition before this infinitive, right? And there is also an infinitive construction, but here infinitive construction, which means that this all, has a different function. Actually, infinitive construction can be a subject, object, and reason adverbial in the sentence without any preposition. But with prepositions, especially with, it can be how adverbial. So we are going to use it in place of how adverbial. How you made the best decision with going there. How you make it with going there, right? So you can see with going there, you can use with in front of infinitive and it changed the translation and its role and its form in the sentence. Did you understand with? Second preposition is without. So without before nouns, pronouns, it's translated like for example, without water means susuz, right? But it's not the same with verb. With verbs, it's translated like dandan, like for example, without bringing, getirmeden, without brushing, fırçalamadan, right? And if you put it in the sentence, for example, don't come here without bringing him here. How can you translate the sentence? Okay, don't go to bed without without brushing your teeth. Yes, so here we also have an infinitive construction, which is almost the same structure with an ordinary infinitive construction. But the difference is we have a preposition before infinitive and it changed the translation and the function of that infinitive. This is also how adverbial. Now you know two different types of how adverbials to use in a sentence. With and without not that hard to use, but this is very common in especially spoken language to use them in your sentences. But there are also some other prepositions that can be used and they're actually more important to use. One of them is on. So in academic English, especially in IELTS, for example, let's say that you're reading something. When you read a sentence, you can see something like this: ongoing or oncoming, right? On passing. So you can see this preposition in front of an infinitive. Do you know what does it mean, by the way? It means when. So how it means when? So for example, I give you a sentence. He dropped by the Chinese embassy when he came from Beijing, right? Can you translate this sentence for me? Okay, by the way, do you have your vocabulary paper and notebook paper nearby? Write it down, please. To drop by means to visit. It's an idiom. It's a phrasal word. Yes, it means to visit. Değmek, uğramak. Yani Çin seferine değdim, Çin seferine uğradım. Visit. So he dropped by the Chinese embassy when he came from Beijing. So translate this sentence for me, please. Mm-hmm. Yes. So if you analyze the contents of the sentence, you'll realize that we have subject, we have the verb, we have place adverbial, we have time adverbial. So if there is a sentence with when, it is a time adverbial. Just like because. The sentence with because, it's a reason adverbial, right? The sentence with when is time adverbial. So actually, on in a sentence is a time adverbial, but how can we convert it and why we should convert it into on? So in the couple lessons later, before we start IELTS, I will give you one lesson. It is about changing conjunction sentence into a preposition phrase, or phrase with a preposition, or a phrase with a preposition phrase. So it's very important because when you write your conjunction sentence with a preposition, with a phrase with a preposition, then it sounds more professional, and it's actually a higher level of English. So, and it's actually easy to make and easy to understand for the listener as well. So writing a sentence too long is not as professional as creating a phrase with a preposition. So when can be replaced with on. But how can we do it? It happens only if both subjects are the same. So here, as you can see, both subjects are the same. So he dropped by the Chinese embassy when he came from Beijing. So you can do this. He dropped by the Chinese embassy. So what I do, I remove this to from here, when and he. I say on, and I take the infinitive coming from Beijing. That's how it happens. He dropped by the Chinese embassy on coming from Beijing. This is a better sentence. So here on coming from Beijing is infinitive construction, and it's time adverbial. So he dropped by, it's a place adverbial and time adverbial we have here. So if you are going to write or create a sentence where the subjects of both sentences are the same, then you can do this magic. You can use on in front of infinitive, which infinitive is the main verb of that when sentence, and you can convert it into this one. Did you understand how we do it? Excuse me? On? Yes, you can change it with on. Wait a second, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat again? Yeah, we can change when with on. We can change like as while. Actually, you can, but mostly it's for when. So in the book, this says that you can change when with on. But obviously, if there are synonyms like as, while, when, they're all pretty much the same. So which means you can actually do it. So you can change it with if the subjects are the same, you can do the same thing. So you can use on in front of them. But actually, when is not that academic level of conjunction. Like it's very simple. So using a simple conjunction, when it's just like because, right? That's why it's better to change it. But for example, as is not simple conjunction. As is formal conjunction. So sentence with as in writing, in IELTS writing, is considered as a professional sentence. So there's no need to convert it into on. So, but you can do it. But if you're going to use when, you better use this preposition option on if the subjects are the same. But if the subjects are not the same, for example, if I say he dropped by the Chinese embassy when you came from Beijing, now you cannot do that. There's only one way to use it, and it's when. Okay, and also you can do this with as and while as well if they mean the same. So here also you can say as you came from Beijing. But if they mean something different, as has different other definitions. We will study it in the conjunction lesson, then you cannot do that. Okay? Well, next one is in and by. Well, these two actually not used in front of infinitive, but it looks pretty much the same. So from now on, I want you to use it. That's why I'm going to tell you this as well. So if you use them in front of infinitive, it of course it becomes ing, like by visiting. It means ziyaret ederek. So by and in is translated like this, okay, in front of infinitive, or like this, like right? So you can translate it like that, kaçarak, or ziyaret ederek, or ziyaret edip, or ziyaret ede ede. It has three translations. Any of them, if you want to use it, you're going to use it with by or in. By the way, this is time adverbial. I said, but I didn't write. This one is also how adverbial. This is actually the best form of using how adverbial in one sentence. If you're going to explain how something happened or how the action is performed, then you're going to use, it's better to use in and by in a sentence, because this is actually a very, very nice way of explaining the frequency of your action. So in and by are perfectly good prepositions. This is actually not infinitive. I will explain it to you in two lessons later. But for now, learn it as infinitive. It looks the same, and use it in your sentences as how adverbial. For example, he escaped the police. Police are running through the forest. Right? He escaped the police running through the forest. How can you translate this sentence? Yes. Here, running through the forest is the construction, verb construction, and it is how adverbial. How he escaped from the police. Running through the forest. Okay? All right. Moving on, next preposition that can be used in front of in infinitive is this. Actually, the rest of them are absolutely easy. So, by the way, in is actually more formal than by. For example, if you use a sentence like this, like this type of microbacteria injures the wounded area of the teeth gum by injecting it on passing by. Let's say infecting it. Okay, how can you translate this sentence? And can you please analyze this sentence for me? Sweet. Can you give me a little more? Excuse me? You can. Just try it. It's quite easy. Is there any word that you don't know the translation of? What is that? Injurious means zedelir. It's the main verb of your sentence. Teeth, gum, diş eti. correct it a little bit more. Correct it a little bit more. This is actually reading skill. I will give you reading skills in the when we start reading. When you read a sentence, when you translate a sentence or try to understand a sentence, if it's a long an academic sentence like this, try to translate them part by part. Subject part first, verb part second, object part third, and the adverbial parts later. Even in when you translate a sentence, you will need subject, verb, object, adverbial. So make sure you translate the subject separately, verb separately, and object separately, and then the adverbials. And by the way, to find out what is what in a sentence, you have to ask questions. Like after finding the subject and the other subject and verb, you can ask the questions for the rest of the sentence, and you can easily find what is what. Yep. Give me a better translation. Uh-huh. Yaralı arazileri. By infecting it. So when you translate a sentence, this is actually, we will talk about this later on, but I will tell you now. When you translate a sentence, try to find the verbs first. We have the first verb, injures, wounded, second verb, infecting, by infecting is the third word, on passing is the fourth verb, right? And so when I told you that there are four different principal forms of verb, infinitive, past simple, P2 and P1, I mean that you can see 5 different types of verbs in one sentence, and they all have independent translation and functions. We will study them one by one. So now I told you if there is by in front of infinitive, this is actually not infinitive, I'll talk about this later, but for now it's infinitive, it's translated like ara erek. So which means by infecting it means onu enfekse ederek, enfeksiyalandırarak veyahut da on passing by means when, keçərkən veyahut da keçəndə. Keçəndə infeksiyalandırarak diş ətinin yaralı ərazilərini zədələyir. Bu tip bakteriyalar keçəndə, onun yanından keçəndə diş ətinin yaralı ərazilərini infeksiyalandırarak zədələyir. Right? So if you know the roles and the places and the functions of the verbs, verb constructions, there are two verb constructions here. We have this is actually P1. Okay, I'll talk about this, but this is P1. P1 construction, infinitive construction you have. Again, you have time adverbial and you have how adverbial. Here you have subject, verb, object, how adverbial, and time adverbial. Remember in the first sentence, I told you that the sentence structure is subject, verb, object, adverbial, and the adverbials that we have used so far, those are simple adverbials. Like I came home last night. Home, place adverbial, very easy, very simple place adverbial. Last night is time adverbial, right? But in academic English, we use complex verb constructions like this to create a larger and better sentences. So far we have studied infinitive construction, which infinitive construction we know how to create it and we know how to use it in a sentence. Later on we will study P1 construction and P2 construction. there you will be able to separate them from one another fast and correctly. Okay, in and by is used before this ing, and the translation is ara. Just learn it like that. On means when. And there also, by the way, the reason that I write you the sentence, if you see something like this, in infecting it, know that in here, since just because this is an academic sentence, this is a formal sentence, then in formal sentences, we prefer to use in more than by, because by is mostly spoken phrase, is used in spoken English. So in, when it comes to writing or saying something in an academic English, then we use in more than by. Okay, so make sure that you use in academic sentences and by in spoken. But you can use both at the same, I mean, in different, vice versa. But the thing is, there is no rule that, oh, you should use in informal sentences or by in informal sentences. You can use whatever you want, but make sure that it's better to use in informal by in informal. Understood? Yes. Excuse me? Uh-huh. Escape the police running through the forest, right? What your question is? Yeah, this is how adverbial. You can say by running, you can say in running, but in running is not. This is not a academic. This is not a formal sentence. So you can use by or in, doesn't matter. But when we study P1, I will explain it to you very clearly, so you will understand. Actually, we can use this in some other parts of sentences. So there is a lesson called starting your sentences with something different. There, I will tell you how to use these things perfectly. And also there are some time adverbials that from now on we're going to use it when we already know. So after, we have before, we have for, these three. So after means, you know this, Sondra. This is also preposition. For example, after eating, brush your teeth. I believe that you know this, right? And before means evvel, which is you can also use it as a as a preposition. Before eating, wash your hands. Yemeden önce ellerinizi yuyun. For, okay, we have studied in order to we have studied so as to before infinitive. For is also is one of them. It means bütün. So when you create a sentence with for, you can just easily say that I came here for fixing my car, or to fix my car, or in order to fix my car, or so as to fix my car. But for is not formal. You will not use for in your IELTS writing. You will always use in order to or so as to if there is infinitive. If there is a noun, pronoun, then I will teach you something more when it comes to the conjunctions and prepositions. But for now, for is not formal. For is informal. You can use it in your speaking. But when it comes to writing, try to use in order to and so as to. Understood? Okay. This is pretty much all about, also you can use while. By the way, I want to tell you about while also. While, when can be used as prepositions, not conjunctions. Again, if the subjects are same. All these conjunctions can be used as prepositions if the subjects are the same. Okay, so for example, now, can you hear me now? Yeah. I like playing while eating. Can you translate it for me? Yes. We spent good time when swimming in the lake. So you can also use when like this, but we have better option, which is on. So we will try to use on more than when. But make sure the both sentences are have the same subject. So we spend good time when we swim or swam in the lake. Okay? So make sure not to make a mistake over here. Well, we have learned the prepositions that can be used with infinitive, with, without, on, in and by, after, before, for, while, when. We have learned this.